Hello, my name is Melissa Cleveland, and I am going to give you a quick overview of the Honeysuckle Beach and boat launch study. The consultant team for the project is John Mueller, a local landscape architect who provided the conceptual designs, Gemma Putty from Horrocks, who provided public involvement, myself from Welch Comer Engineers, I provided project management, the city staff, and a multi jurisdictional working group. The study was initiated to try to improve the user experience, both for the beach users and the boaters at Honeysuckle Beach. This came out of the Parks Master Plan that was done a couple of years ago at the city, and a lot of the public feedback gathered during that master plan centered around the congestion at Honeysuckle Beach. So the city embarked on a separate study to kind of focus on those issues. It was never intended to expand the capacity of the beach, just improve that user experience. And there was a study in the spring of 2021 that indicated a separation of uses was desired. We found with working with the working group, who includes permitting agencies, that it was easier to rebuild the launch than to relocate the beach. So the working group focused on finding another place to build the launch. This working group that I just spoke of, it includes many multi-agency individuals, and they've been super helpful to help vet different alternatives. The beginning of the project, our public involvement consultant conducted quite a few stakeholder interviews just to kind of get a lay of the land and get a feeling for what was going on down at the site. So they talked to marinas, residents, summer camp staff, the sheriff, the Watershed Association, lifeguards, fishermen, local dock builder. And the challenges that they saw or that they heard over and over were that boats are getting bigger and there's limited space for the launch. And people launching have varying degrees of launch experience. So some people take a long time, some people are really quick and maybe getting frustrated with the people who are taking a long time. Parking, traffic flow, backing up of traffic was a common theme. The pump house down right next to the launch, Dalton Irrigation Districts, is seen as an obstacle. Quite a few discussions about pedestrian access and safety. And the thought that the launch is really the access for the whole lake. There are another couple options to get on the lake, but Sportsman's access is inconvenient. It's way on the north end. It's very marshy up there. A lot of discussion that the fishing is really on the south end of the lake. So if you launch up at the north end, you're pretty far from where you're trying to go. Opportunities that were kind of common themes are that it would be nice to have more docks, especially with the essential emergency access that was desired down there. Potentially a harbor master to kind of organize the flow of people getting on and off the lake. The separation, if possible, of commercial, public, and emergency needs at the launch. Maybe off-site parking with a shuttle for boat trailers. Maybe making parking at the beach paid or charge for parking as a way to limit use. Providing a drop-off area so that people who are just dropping people off or picking people up don't have to find a parking spot to do so. Potentially have scheduled windows of operation for, I think this was mostly for the launch, or make people sign up for a specific slot to use the launch. Have a or parking lot attendant to kind of organize that flow, and potentially increase costs of the facility so that that would naturally potentially decrease use. Last spring, we put a survey out, and 440 people took the survey, most of whom were Hayden residents. No people that took the survey were out of state. That survey was advertised with flyers at city parks. It was also in Super One grocery bags for the weekend on the city's website and Facebook page. In that survey, I'm not going to show all the results. That'll be in the final report, but kind of the results that ended up informing kind of the rest of the study I'm going to discuss real quick. So there was a question, if you rarely use the beach, what's the reason? And the common theme was it's too crowded and there's not enough parking. If you rarely use the launch, what's the reason? Other than not having a boat, which makes sense, it was that it's too busy and there's not enough parking. I think the challenges at the beach and the launch, the common theme was overcrowded, lots of traffic congestion, need more parking for vehicles with trailers, et cetera, et cetera. We asked the public to rate various solutions, and most of the solutions were just kind of range from poor to excellent with no clear winner, except for this option, which was relocation of the boat launch. A lot of people thought that was an excellent idea. The basic survey results overview is that overcrowded and lack of parking were the main issues. Other issues were cleanliness, perception of out of state users, and traffic flow conflicts. It's also was noted that it's difficult for kayak and paddleboard users to use the launch or to use the site at all. Right now, a lot of people walk to the far north side of Honeysuckle Beach to launch, and that's across the sand and certainly not ADA accessible. We found that people were kind of lukewarm about paying more to launch or to pay at all for parking or day use, probably about 50-50 on being willing to pay. And people were in favor of relocating the launch as a solution. This isn't really part of the study, but just worth noting because it happened in the midst of our study. That the city changed the parking lot between Memorial Day and Labor Day to take the parking out of the middle of the parking lot that was boat parking and convert that to regular car parking. So that left only 9 boat trailer spaces on the west edge. So there was some positive feedback. Mostly from people, that were using the beach, but quite a bit of negative feedback, a lot from fishermen. So we're trying to solve the problem of having kind of conflicting user groups using the same space. So this launch data it doesn't tell the whole story, and I don't want people to think it does. This is daily passes bought at the kiosk by year and summer month. And what we're trying to understand is the in-state and out-of-state percentage, has it changed? Is it a significant issue? That type of thing. So what you can see here is in July 2018, it was about a 60-40 split for in-state versus out-of-state. In the last 3 years, that has changed to about 50-50. So the percentage has increased for the out-of-state users in July. Maybe that's pandemic related, not really sure. And in August, it used to be about 60-40 in-state to out-of-state. And in the last 3 years, it's been 70-30. So it's actually our in-state percentage has gone up in the last 3 years. So I'm not seeing anything that really says that the out-of-staters have, stormed the beach and we have a lot more users from out of state. But again, this is a pretty limited source of data. It's only the daily launch passes purchased there at the kiosk. We have been brainstorming ideas with the working group. This working group includes Kootenai County Parks and Waterways, the Marine Sheriff, the Highway District, Dalton Irrigation District, Department of Lands, because they end up permitting anything in the lake. Department of Parks and Recreation, because they are the primary source for recreation funding in Idaho. The Corps of Engineers, Fish and Game, Department of Water Resources, Hayden Lake Sewer District. They have a lift station in the existing beach parking lot, and they also have a sewer line in the dike. Tobler Marina, just because they had a person, it's one of their employees, that during the stakeholder interviews was just really knowledgeable, had worked at several different marinas nationwide, so we asked him to participate. North Idaho Maritime, the local dock builder, and they own property close to the site. And the Inland Northwest Land Conservancy, there's the property kind of south of Honeysuckle on Honeysuckle Bay is owned by a family, and they have put that property in a conservation trust. And the group that manages that trust is the Inland Northwest Land Conservancy. So we asked them to participate in the working group. So here's the existing site. You got the parking lot, you've got the docks, and then you've got the beach. And the launch is right in here. And Dalton Irrigation District's pump house is right here. And so that kind of is a pinch point as you're trying to launch. Then there's other car parking over on the west side here, and then boats end up parking just kind of all along the south side of Honeysuckle Avenue. So this is a concept for improving the beach. Very, very high level. Just don't want people to think any of this is set in stone. Nothing's been designed. These are pretty pictures. Think of it as a 30,000 foot look at what we might be able to do down there. This beach option, it removes the launch, so this would just be beach and probably non-motorized users like kayakers and paddleboarders and stuff like that. We still maintain access to the homes that are right here, kind of south of the beach. We'd provide a drop-off area, like people had commented during the survey. Pretty much maintaining the same level of parking as exists today. Expand the beach, not to increase capacity, because we're not increasing parking, but just to allow for a little more elbow room. Have a dedicated boat slip for emergency services, and maintain the existing launch as a kayak paddleboard launch area. And that could be designed to be ADA accessible. I zoomed out a bit, and the reason is to show the existing beaches over here, and then you got Honeysuckle Bay, and then you have this property here, which is in that conservation trust. And then we have a parcel down here on the south side of the bay. And as the working group and city staff and the consultants all tried to brainstorm, how do we relocate the launch, since we're trying to separate the users and improve the experience for both. So how do we do that? So we looked at this property down here, and this is owned by Dalton Irrigation District, and it's also where that spillway, kind of the water when it floods in the early spring, it spills over here and kind of comes out into both this property and this property that's in the Conservation Trust. So this was an alternative that's proposed for relocating the launch. It would come off of Lower Hayden Lake Road and be on that property owned by Dalton Irrigation District. We'd probably construct a new irrigation pump house. It wouldn't have to. The other one could stay in the location where it is today, but that might be an opportunity to rebuild it. It may require sediment removal, kind of a non-native sediment removal out in the bay, so that it's pretty shallow out here, especially this last year, and so that this could be used year-round. We may need floodplain or wetland mitigation. I'll show you a slide on that in a minute. And we may need to look at intersection improvements and road improvements that might be warranted just because of the increased traffic. There's also an idea to have interim boat parking on the city's gravel pit, which is kind of just, it's on Honeysuckle Avenue, but it's just east of Strayhorn. And this would require shuttling people from this property to the launch in some fashion. And the thought there was to just kind of increase turnover at the launch so that people weren't waiting so long to launch and people were getting to and from their parking quicker. This was seen as an interim solution, though, because the city does use this pit and this site a lot, so they wouldn't want to lose it long term. So I just quickly put together some numbers on parking to show that we're just kind of staying pretty consistent with the parking, at least in our very high level proposed concepts. So if you have the parking at the beach for trailers, which is only 9, and then you have parking along Honeysuckle, maybe you have about 30 more spots, and that's between the parking lot and Lower Hayden Lake Road. I know sometimes it's even more intense than that, but on an average basis. So you've got maybe about 40 spaces, between 40 and 50 existing spaces. On the new launch concept, we're showing 40. So we're showing that we're not really, the intent isn't to increase capacity, it's just to move the launch and provide parking near the launch instead of, up to a half mile away along Honeysuckle Avenue. And at the beach, kind of the same thing. We're looking at kind of just maintaining the same level of parking that exists today. Lake levels, I know that that's a real challenge, something that we have to study even more. We did get data from a gauge that was over at Hayden Lake Marina that ID, Department of Water Resources maintains. And that's showing that we would probably need to remove between 2 and 4 feet of sediment right in the vicinity of the ramp and 1 to 2 feet kind of out into the bay to kind of make a channel to come to the ramp. But we're recognizing that this needs a lot more study before we really do anything. And the Department of Water Resources would require study anyway. The wetlands, yes, there probably are wetlands down there, and we would have to, if we impacted them, we would have to mitigate. And we're all on board with that thought process. Floodplain, this is an excerpt from the FEMA map down there, and it shows that potentially there's the work might be within the floodplain, also might not. So part of the next steps, if the city chooses to move forward, would be to model the floodplain and get a clear understanding of where that is and if there's any impact. If there is, we have to mitigate for that as well. And other challenges that have been noted at the open house and in comment forms that have come in so far is the traffic impacts on Hayden Lake Road, the bay freezing, and maybe limiting winter fishing access to the lake if the launch was moved to the south side of the bay, spillway and flooding concerns, and safety of bicyclists on Hayden Lake Road. I think the main concern was just increased traffic on Hayden Lake Road, and then potentially if boats boat trailers are backed up and on Hayden Lake Road and the bicyclists can't get through safely. So that's definitely something that we need to look at closely. The soils in the bay, if we decided that we would need to remove some material, making sure that the soils were investigated carefully to make sure that we didn't increase the drain in this location of the lake. Nobody would want to do that. And then also that the bay is in a no-wake zone, and there's also been discussion of potential non-motorized areas of the bay and how would the launch in this location impact that. And all of this stuff just needs more study. I think with the no wake zone, and nobody's proposing that the no wake zone would go away. Everyone agrees that that's a good thing. So that part wouldn't happen, but maybe there are specific non-motorized areas of the bay that are designated with buoys. But again, all of these items are legitimate challenges that just need more study. We're just at the very, very beginning of this as a potential solution. And again, we're at the 30,000 foot level. Discussion on, well, you should just increase fees for out of state. So state and federal law prohibits that. And if the city decided to go against that and just, start charging extremely high fees to launch an out of state boat, um, that would have some ramifications that they would have to deal with, including potentially repaying past grant funding, really limiting their ability to ever get new recreation grant funding. And then that's the Federal Register that I obtained. That's where it describes these limitations. So next steps are we're going to summarize the public feedback and have another working group meeting. Hopefully finalize the report in late winter, continue working with the Dalton Irrigation District since they own the land there where the proposed launch relocation is located, and the county. The property is actually located in the county, not the city, so working closely with them on some sort of a partnership to build the new launch. Allocate funding for preliminary design, kind of get through all that, those different studies that we talked about to make sure it's still feasible. Chase funding for final design and construction, construct the launch, and construct the improvements. But of course, all of this will require approval from the City Council to move forward. So with that, I just ask that people fill out the comment forms that are on the city's website, and please let us know what you think and give us as much feedback as possible so that we can really present this to the council and see where we go from here. Thank you.